AI is not intelligent in the way that humans are, but it does a fantastic job of making sense out of vast amounts of data and kind of taken as a substrate on which we can collaboratively work on big problems. That by far is the most exciting thing about AI that I see coming to the fore, where we can all collectively, as humans, chip away at problems we haven't discovered yet in ways we've never been able to collaborate before.
Hi, I'm Boaz, founder and CEO of Augmented AI Labs, and I'm excited that you're tuning in to the Shift AI podcast, a show that explores what it takes to thrive and adapt to the changing workplace in the digital age of remote work and AI. In today's episode, I'm thrilled to have Taylor Black as our guest. As Director of AI and Venture Ecosystems in Microsoft's CTO office, Taylor brings a unique perspective from the front lines of enterprise AI development. With his background as a B2B SaaS founder and experience running deep tech venture studios, Taylor has a fascinating view on how agentic workflows are transforming the workplace and what protocols like MCP mean for the future of software development. If you're interested in understanding what AI agents really are beyond the hype, how companies like Microsoft are thinking about these new interfaces, or what an abundant intelligence future might look like, you are not going to want to miss this episode. We also want to send out a special thank you to Augmented AI Labs for sponsoring this episode. This is going to be a great show, and we're super excited to talk to Taylor today and learn more about the groundbreaking work happening at Microsoft's CTO office. Let's get to it. Hey, Taylor, great to have you on the show. I'm super excited about the conversation that we're going to have today, and welcome to the Shift AI podcast.
Thanks, Boaz. It's great to be here.
Yeah. So before we get started, I always like to have folks from Microsoft on the show, but there's such a diversity in terms of title and the work that we do. Why don't you just describe to the audience the work that you do? I know you work within the CTO's office, but to break that down for us and help us understand exactly kind of what you do every day.
Yeah, for sure. Well, that changes really because the CTO's office is kind of an extension of the CTO. Both in terms of getting things done and also in terms of kind of bringing information into the CTO's work. And so over the 4 years I've been at Microsoft, it's done a variety of different things. I came in and helped build an internal venture studio for big bet sorts of ideas in the CTO's office. We built that out, had a number of incubations run through that. Now a lot of my work is kind of consulting across the company in an advisory sort of way on how to utilize the incubation studio models across our innovation ecosystem. And also I help run an internal peer-reviewed conference motion that we call it MLabs, so Machine Learning, AI, and Data Science Conference. We have about one a month, and a lot of our practitioners submit papers, and we have very technical talks and build our internal AI knowledge and product making in that sort of conference motion as well.
Nice. Now, I mean, technically your title is Director of AI and Platform Ecosystems. Is that right?
Venture ecosystems. Oh yeah, so to kind of taking that venture, building that venture studio sort of mindset and bringing it to the enterprise is that side of things.
So what were you doing before that got you into this role? Were you working within developer communities and incubation?
No, actually.
Of
So I'm a B2B SaaS founder way back. So I've definitely worked in developer communities. I was a full stack developer myself in the web stacks. But what I was doing directly before was helping build and run a deep tech venture studio called the Invention Science Fund. We would come up with hardcore kind of physics-based ideas, everything from nuclear power to metamaterials to biomedical devices, kind of grow it as a little idea within our venture studio, turn it into a company, and then launch it at about a Series A. Then it would go out into the world and continue to do its building.
It's so interesting that within such a large organization that you're running this incubation studio and kind of looking for research and ideas that can then get spun out into interesting things. And I know we've talked before about this conference that you run where employees can submit papers and the research that they're interested in and the research that they're doing. And oftentimes that turns into amazing ideas that kind of surface. And that's so incredible. Well, Gosh, there's so many things I want to talk to you about today. I mean, let's start with the Work Trend Index. Microsoft just came out with the
Sure.
Work Trend Index, and a huge part of it was about agents. I know you think a lot about agentic workflows, and you're thinking about kind of the ecosystem so that those things can thrive. Can you just kind of, one, tell us about kind of how you think about it, but also like help the audience understand, within the media hype around agents, it's all we're hearing this year is agents and agentic workflows, but like bring us down to earth and talk to us a little bit about how you define that and what that means to you.
Yeah, for sure. And it is a complicated space. I think too, it's complicated because we don't have a good paradigm or sizing sort of understanding of what agents actually are. And there's a lot of difference between how people talk about agents. I think at their core, and this is not how I think they're mostly referred to out in the world, is an agent is something that is able to do something on your behalf because you have delegated authority to that agent to be able to do something on your behalf. You can kind of think of it as, perhaps you have someone who takes care of your lawn. You've given them the authority to come, once a week or once a month or whatever to do things to your lawn. And you've scoped that authority to the lawn, to your lawn, and their ability to work directly in that particular space. You might also have something like somebody who's a power of attorney for you. They have a much different kind of agency in that case, right? You've granted them a great amount of authority to do certain things on your behalf. Now, agents in the software space, I think you can kind of see them as very, very similar. Right now, they don't have a lot of ways in which to take authority granted from you. And so the ways in which we're seeing agents right now are still pretty nascent, primarily because they don't have a lot of space to work in right now, right? They might be associated with a particular account that you have or a piece of software that you're utilizing where it can do small tasks within that piece of software. But kind of the end-to-end ecosystem, we're still very much just getting to build.
Yeah. And so the analogy, let's stretch that analogy a little bit. I mean, people are now used to these co-pilots, these assistants, ChatGPT, where they actively have to be massaging the lawn. If something happens, no, I want you to cut it this way. Actually, maybe make a change over here, and there's a lot of back and forth. What you're describing in a world where people are giving an AI travel agent their credit card and saying, I want to go to Rome, book the air flight, book the lodging, book the restaurants for me. And that agent has the authority to then do that with your credit card. That's something that's a good example of what this could look like in the future across lots of different agency. Is that fair?
Exactly. Yeah. But you could even see it kind of coordinating your personal schedule or your family office of your little house and whatnot. But notice it's working within a particular defined set of things that you're comfortable with that agent doing. Right. And it's going to start out small, right? Like I'm comfortable with my toddler putting away plastic dishes, but not glass dishes. But as they get older, and as you see them do the tasks for you in the smaller ways, the bigger ways come to fruition.
So what are the things that need to be in place in order for all this to start working?
Yeah, there's a number of things. So going back to that gardener analogy, perhaps, the gardener knows that you have something to pay them with. There's also a thing called currency that exists that allows them to do that sort of thing. They have a map that they know how to get to your house and be able to move the stuff off of their truck onto your lawn in order to go about doing that. We all kind of take that ecosystem and environment for granted. But of course, agents were kind of starting from scratch in many ways. So when you have an agent working on a particular software platform, it may not be able to talk to other software platforms. It may not know how to, readily grab the right credit card that you've given it access to. It may not know how to interact with other agents and kind of share that kind of protocol. Right, your gardener knows that, well, you live in that house because you came out of the front door. You are able to act on its behalf there. That's just not the case in the agentic system right now. There's some great protocols, Anthropic's MCP protocol.
Yeah, I want to talk to you about that. Yeah, talk more about MCP for the audience members
Yeah, certainly.
that are.
Yeah, MCP is a model context protocol. It's really great. It's a great step in the right direction. And it too is kind of light. But notice model context protocol starts building a world in which agents know how to use certain tools. They know the authority frameworks that they're able to operate within, not only vis-a-vis users like you and I, but also vis-a-vis other agents. And it kind of defines the set of tools that those agents are able to use within that particular context. You can imagine this kind of growing and growing so that they have their own little agents have their own little world where all of the rules make sense. You know, the gravity is there. They know how to talk to other agents and what levels of authority to interact with and how to make those kinds of decisions. And without kind of a standard protocol across all of that, agents aren't very helpful. It's like kind of, having a gardener that has no access to your house. It's just a problematic situation.
Can we also kind of flesh out from a developer standpoint? I noticed that Notion and Salesforce and all these big companies are developing MCP protocols. And when I talk to developers tell me, oh man, it makes life so much easier for me now because before I had to string all this stuff up and now I don't have to do that anymore. Can you give some examples of like a big platform and when they do have an MCP setup, why that is so useful?
Yeah, I think a similar paradigm is to think of it as the advent of APIs. When we were all building, a decade or two ago and interacting with other interfaces, different software products would have a dramatically different way of allowing access to that particular platform through that API. It wasn't until we kind of got more standardized around REST APIs. It wasn't until the folks started realizing the developers needed a nice, simple, repeatable way of interacting with a lot of different software products that APIs really became useful and helpful from a developer standpoint. I think we're in exactly the same paradigm here with MCPs. What tools can a agentic agent use in a particular context? Can we all kind of gather around a protocol that's robust enough from a security standpoint, from a data standpoint, so that it becomes the de facto standard that we can all count on when we're building, so that we don't have to re-engineer things from scratch if we're developing a particular kind of application.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I noticed recently that both Sam Altman and Google kind of threw it in the hat and said, hey, we're going to use MCP and the future is MCP. And that really pushed things forward. So it seems like there is a bit of consolidation around this protocol.
There is certainly. And I think just today, Microsoft announced their agent-to-agent protocol in concert with Google as well. And it raises all boats, right? Yeah. If we pave the road, then it makes all of our lives easier.
And now, before we dive deeper, I want to take a quick moment and tell you a little bit about one of our podcast partners. As a listener of this show, I know you're trying to stay on top of all things AI and tech, which is why you have to check out the amazing GeekWire podcast, produced by GeekWire and hosted by Todd Bishop. It's a treasure of insights featuring industry leaders and the latest tech trends that are shaping our world, and the perfect companion podcast to Shift AI. GeekWire podcast is where technology meets curiosity and covers the world of technology, startups, and geek culture. Expand your tech horizons and join the conversation. Tune into the GeekWire podcast today, a perfect complement to our own discussions here. Don't miss out. Follow the GeekWire podcast on Apple Podcast, Spotify, or your favorite listening app. Before we go further with the interview, I want to tell you about one of our podcast sponsors, Augmented AI Labs, and how they're transforming businesses through intelligent AI solutions. Augmented AI Labs specializes in helping organizations unlock their potential with Gen AI, starting with your most valuable asset, your business knowledge. Their comprehensive process begins by identifying critical workflow challenges and knowledge needs, then building custom solutions that make your company's expertise instantly accessible. The Augmented AI Labs team combines fine-tuning and retrieval methods to ensure your AI solutions truly understand your business context. They thoroughly test and validate each solution, ensuring it delivers measurable value before creating a detailed technical blueprint for deployment. The real beauty of partnering with Augmented AI Labs is that they don't just stop at strategy. They build, deploy,
and manage these solutions for you, continuously improving your knowledge systems while you focus on what you do best. If you're ready to transform how your organization leverages AI and knowledge, visit augmentedAIlabs.com and click on the Contact Us button. That's augmentedAIlabs.com. Now back to the episode. Can you talk more about what Microsoft is thinking about in terms of agents as much as you can talk about? I mean, agents were all over the Work Trend Index that came out, and I know it's a big focus. What's happening inside the company, and what are people talking about?
Yeah, certainly. So I think there's two primary ways in which we see agents. I'm going to talk about it from kind of a technical standpoint, then I'll talk about it from a perhaps a nature of work standpoint. The technical standpoint is that agents, by encapsulating our authority and a certain set of things that we want them to be able to do, end up being the software interface layer of the era of AI. So as you can imagine, we have many software interfaces, and if we're going to move into this new paradigm of agents, it's something that we have to think about from how do we help users kind of shard themselves into a variety of different agents that are then able to do work on their behalf on the Microsoft stack. And how can we make that easy for them? How can we make it so that they're able to accelerate their own productivity and then their own lines of business on the Microsoft paradigm? No. So that's one. It's a seismic shift on the order of kind of software, right?
Yeah.
In fact, we talk about AI so much, and everybody thinks that maybe in 5 years we're going to use AI in the same way that we use the term software, right? In fact, we kind of are already.
Yeah.
So that's one thing. The second thing is that with any like large technical shift like this, there's a big shift in customer experience. Right, in user experience, in design interfaces. Not only are we kind of having to design for agents as a user, which is an interesting sort of concept, but also we're having to bring along users who have been used to a certain way of working for a long time with our products, and help them kind of understand this new paradigm shift. And I almost don't like using the word paradigm shift because it sounds like bigger and bolder and it's more scary than it should. And it doesn't get down to kind of the nitty gritty of, you're working with another kind of intelligence. And it's a companion for you for tasks that you have gotten good at over the years through one way of working. And now it's just a matter of kind of working with and delegating and training this new intelligence that works next to you for completing those kinds of things as well.
Yeah, it's interesting. When I hear the Microsoft talking points around agents and the way that we're going to visualize it, and I wonder if you can kind of paint the picture, especially for the audience that is just listening. But when I hear them talk, I think about dashboards where we can manage all these agents. Like in a world where I have 100 agents, which seem like a lot to me, but let's imagine that there's all sorts of things going on within my business and my personal life. There needs to be a visual way that maybe looks kind of conventional. I mean, maybe it's a dashboard, I don't know, that allows me to track what's going on, catch things that are wrong, make changes as necessary, right? Like, is that how you think about it? Like when you paint the picture?
Yeah, certainly. I think it's important to approach this from a human standpoint as well. Definitely, I can see a dashboard being a way in which a modality under which this happens. But also you need to kind of respect our capacity for decision making and the biological context in which we know and move and kind of have our being. And as a result of that, I think it will definitely probably start out as a bunch of dashboards where we're monitoring a bunch of different things happening all at the same time. In fact, I already kind of work that way with deep research and a lot of the other kind of AI tools available to me. But if you, to your point, kind of start scaling that up where there's 100 agents kind of doing work for you, they can move a lot faster and get things a lot done more quickly than your decision-making capacity really wants to work with, right? So I could see some interesting paradigms in which it's more contextualized. So maybe, when you go home, the AIs that you're working with there end up being more ambient. So you're talking with them perhaps, or, the kinds of things you talk about changes when you're in different rooms, so that your decision-making capacity is able to take advantage of the way in which we've all evolved of like, I think about this in this particular space. I can imagine something similar in the work context too, where maybe there's certain kinds of decisions or there's certain kinds of thinking that you do better when it's a conversation back and forth. And so you save that paradigm, that modality for those kinds of work. And similar for all of the other different ways. While we don't need to have all of these different applications now in some ways, because utilizing that sort of dashboard or this single locus of work and having the agents go out and work on all those different pieces of software in order to produce the artifacts that we need. There's a certain amount of grounding that being in a non-universal hub provides you from a context standpoint. So I think we're in a really interesting paradigm when it comes to like user interface design in this space. You could almost imagine like being in front of a huge Teams meeting all day in some ways, where the different people are leaving the screen in order to get the things done, and when they come back, you continue having that conversation with them as well. Them being a host of agents, perhaps. But it's our decision-making capacity that I think is going to be the thing that we need to design for, rather than anything inherent to agents themselves.
It's interesting you bring up voice, because I find myself talking to AI a lot more, probably in the last 2 or 3 months than I have in a while. I've been doing it in my car with Gemini.
Yeah.
And I've started to do it, in my living room with Chat GPT. And I think that Claude's coming out with a version 2, and it actually feels really odd at first to be having that kind of conversation. But once you get into it, very natural.
Yeah.
And I find that if I'm prototyping or doing some thought partnering, I know that there's text getting generated in the background, but the conversation is now, the latency is so good that I just feel like I can get to my ideas faster sometimes when I'm talking it through.
Yeah, I agree. I love the record that it provides too, and the way you can kind of send it to do research on the basis of what you talked about, so that you're able to substantiate or disprove different directions that you might be going much more quickly. But yeah,
it's an exciting paradigm and modality. Well, I also kind of want to talk about some of the challenges, and so many people right now, especially because of the hype, are hyper optimistic and everything's amazing and there's no worries. We're just going to be, creative, and all of the mundane work is going to go away. But I know that you think deeply about the challenges, both, Microsoft in terms of their products, but also just in general and people's adoption of this technology. So like what are some of the things that you think about, and how do you frame it for yourself?
yeah. I think they're layered. So I think I might start with the one that's most apparent, perhaps, is all of us kind of started our careers by doing a lot of the work that AI can do now, right? It can a lot. I remember spending a lot of time, in Excel, cleaning data, moving data around early in my business intelligence side of my career, or even in law school when I was writing papers and that sort of thing. Both of those things are now, fairly trivial for AI to accomplish in a very fast fashion. Now, we can think about the economic aspects of that for sure, but more importantly, I think, are the intellectual aspects. I had to do that work in order to get, this to where it is today in some ways, right? I couldn't start thinking about higher order problems until I had solved the lower order problems. You can't move on to calculus until you've figured out, addition and multiplication, right? And so I think that there's a very important way in which we need to think about working with these tools in an adversarial sort of fashion, where how is my interaction with this particular tool making me smarter or better or more thoughtful or more human And this goes not just for my own use of it, but also in anything that I'm building that ends up having some of this as part of it, right? So it's like buying a treadmill and never using it, or like if you're getting dumber as a result of offloading all of your intellectual work to your AI, it puts you in a bad place, and it puts us as a species in a bad place. So that's kind of one concern that I have, and then there's definitely ways of becoming a lot smarter by kind of being thoughtful about your use of AI there. Yeah, and the economic ramifications are there's a kind of a big shift happening there, and I think I think we're coming to grips with it still. I think the real work and like the rubber hitting the road will happen once we understand how agents reshape the nature of our work kind of from the ground up, particularly as knowledge workers, but also in other fields as well. Right now, we're still kind of operating under the old employment paradigm because it's the only one we know, while we're making strides in discovering what the new one looks like. But I think that, using traditional terms for it, I think that employees are going to are dramatically more productive with AI. As a result of that, they also end up being more expensive per person because of the compute and resources that they are necessarily have as part of that. And so that we kind of have this gap forming where there's a lot of work can be done by fewer people, but we haven't yet discovered the wild, amazing things that this technology paradigm shift opens up in terms of new problems to solve from a productivity and from a GDP standpoint. There's some notional directions there, but yeah.
Yeah. Along those lines, one of the things I always like talking with you about is philosophical things, because I know that you kind of think deeply about this stuff and it's not just all technical. And I haven't really had a lot of folks be honest about the societal implications about what we're seeing, especially people that are deep into the technology that know what's coming. What do you think about from a society standpoint, economically, when all of a sudden we just have a lot of people out of work? Look into the future a little bit and what do you see coming?
Yeah, I think there's two lenses to look through it, an abundance and a scarcity. Now, from a scarcity standpoint, I think it is limiting to see the set of problems that we've been able to focus on so far as the only set of problems. Kevin Scott, the CTO, often says, AI has made easy many difficult things. What impossible things has it made merely difficult? And I don't think that we've spent a lot of time in that space yet. One is because it's kind of hard to see. We didn't realize that cell phones would be able to give rise to something like Uber and disrupt an entire industry there. We're in a similar vein here and just barely kind of scratching the surface, particularly in like AI for science. I think we're starting to see some incredible stuff from a research standpoint kind of coming down the pipe there that gives us a hint kind of what's to come. And that's why I kind of prefer taking that abundance mindset of, there's a lot of people out of work because we've forgot how to build. There's a whole set of interesting problems, new problems that we have never been able to take on before because we didn't have intellectual labor this cheap, right? And so that's kind of the call to action there, right? There's definitely going to be a lot of people out of work as we make this transition, but it can be a step function. And so how do we think about making that step?
I love the abundance mindset relative to AI. That's a great way to think about it. Well, I always end the show with the same question, so I'll give it to you. If you were to think about the future of work, the future of AI, and describe it in 2 words, what would those 2 words be? And then you can elaborate.
Abundant intelligence.
Okay.
Yeah, and the elaboration there is AI is not intelligent in the way that humans are, but it does a fantastic job of making sense out of vast amounts of data and kind of taken as a substrate on which we can collaboratively work on big problems. That by far is the most exciting thing about AI that I see coming to the fore, where we can all collectively, as humans, chip away at problems that we haven't discovered yet as a result of the massive amount of data we're able to find correlations in now, and collaborate intellectually in ways that we've never been able to collaborate before. It even makes easier the moving between projects or the pausing of a project to come back to it later in a much richer way because of the context that we're able to build into these AI intelligences. So I'm excited for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm excited for the future as well, and it's really helpful to have a kind of lens into what's happening today and what's happening in the future through kind of all the meetings and all the things that you're doing within Microsoft and within the CTO's office. So I really appreciate you coming on the show, Taylor. It was really great, and I look forward to having you back.
Thanks, Boaz. It's been great being here, and I love being a part of this ecosystem that you've built.
Awesome. Thanks, Taylor. That's a wrap. Thanks for tuning in. Such a pleasure to have Taylor as our guest on today's episode. His insights into how agents function as the interface layer of the AI era, and his thoughtful exploration of both the technical and philosophical implications of this shift give us a lot to think about. I particularly appreciate his perspective on abundant intelligence and how AI can enable us to tackle problems we've never been able to approach before. From MCP protocols that standardize agent communication to his thoughts on how we need to design for human decision-making capacity, Taylor offers a grounded view of where we are now and where we're headed with agentic workflows. I continue to be amazed by the guests we've had on the show, and I'm excited about the ones joining us in the near future. I truly appreciate you spending your time with us. Thank you for listening to this episode, and don't forget to subscribe to the Shift AI podcast for more exciting interviews and to the Augmented Edge newsletter for updates on how AI can help you scale your business. The Shift AI podcast is syndicated by GeekWire, and we're grateful to have the show sponsored by Augmented AI Labs. Our theme music was created by Dave Angel.